rakan-rakan saya muliakan, ada keistimewaan pameran ini. Sekitar 5-6 tahun dulu, sebelum saya menjabat jawatan, saya lihat beberapa artifak di muzium ini. Saya terpegun kerana ada satu artifak dari Tipu Sultan. Saya tak salahkan Tan Sri Syed Mukhtar kerana dia banyak fokus tentang perniagaan besar dan kerja-kerja dalam bidang konglomerat dia. Tapi saya terangkan ini Tipu Sultan. Jasa dia besar. Dan saya kagum dengan sedikit pengetahuan tentang Tipu Sultan. Saya ke Mysore khusus kerana melihat sumbangan beliau dan istana dan beberapa pameran di sana yang agak sangat terbatas. Dan kerana pengalaman Tipu Sultan lah yang menyebabkan saya memilih untuk melihat juga salah satu kuil Hindu yang ulung, yang lama di Guruvayur. Kerana dalam sejarah Tipu Sultan ini, Mysore adalah salah satunya pemimpin Islam yang mengambil perhatian dan menziarah kuil Hindu yang terkemuka, yang dianggap sekitar 2000 tahun, iaitu Guruvayur, untuk menjaga dan menyantuni rakyat beliau yang majoriti masih beragama Hindu. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I was recounting my personal experience with the history of Tipu Sultan. I don't claim to have mastery of the subject, but certainly as a student of history, I am of course enchanted by the great statesman, anti-colonial fighter, Tipu Sultan. And when I was here, many years back, long before I assumed his office, I was with Tan Sri Syed Mukhtar, and then I was attracted to this piece on Tipu Sultan. I said, Syed, this is a great guy. This is something not known outside India. Very little is known. But I think it is a remarkable feat. A strong leader of the Mysore Sultanate, led a very simple life. You visit his palace, for example, is probably one of the most, or the smallest palace I have seen in my life. In fact, I was a bit curious to know whether it is actually his palace, but that simplicity helps us to understand the man who was leading a nation who wouldn't tolerate a colonial rule, who had this strength, indefatigable fighter for freedom. And a learned Sultan, can see from his collection of books, and therefore one of the few understood the need to have mastery of technology in order to be able to fight the colonial rule. That's why you see his cannons and his guns as some remarkable feat that shocked the colonial rulers in the first wars. Now, so what relevance has it to be here in Malaysia? I think we are fortunate. So thank you very much, Muhammad. It is not just an ordinary exhibition, but to showcase the history of India and the Muslim world, and history of the anti-colonial struggle against colonial rule, in this particular case, the British rule, his diplomatic skills with the few sultanates, Muslims and Hindus in India, and his venture into the international diplomacy, particularly in persuading the French forces to support his struggle against the British. Now, Malaysia never knew much about Tipu Sultan or his father, Haider Ali. But hopefully this will change. Now that the Islamic Arts Museum, Malaysia, is mounting the most comprehensive exhibition ever held anywhere as a tribute to the hero and his father. So thank you again. And we have brought with us some standing scholars, curators, and of course, director and producer Akbar Khan, who has certainly a better and profound understanding of this man. You know, history is not necessarily very kind. In the last session we had here, I was talking about the reconstruction of Malaysian history. How one of our scholars, Hussein Alatas, emphasized the need to reconstruct history, because history cannot be written only by the winners or from the perspective of the colonial rulers. Malaysian history, as other history, is always written from the perspective of the British, essentially Western colonial rule. And of course there has been lots of academic accounts, including by Edward Said on Orientalism, but the manner, the whole discipline of history and culture and society is being dictated by a certain Western viewpoint. And in the reconstruction of history, it's also an attempt to understand that modernity in the Malay world is not necessarily after British colonial rule. Similarly, if you understand Indian history, you can see the vast contribution of the great rulers in India, who has promoted scholarship, learning, tolerance. I made reference to just now when I visited Mysore about a decade ago, and then of course surprised by the size, the small size of the palace of this Sultan of Mysore, and then of course knew about the fact that he was one of the first Muslim rulers that engaged with the Hindu majority and decided to visit Guruvayur, one of the most, I should say, one of the oldest Hindu temples in India, and pay respects to the Hindu Swamijis and priests. And because of that, I decided from the palace of Mysore to visit the temple, the Guruvayur temple, and to understand that, you know, this is not ordinary, because it only takes leaders with such wisdom and tolerance to engage with his subjects. And so we talk about governance, we talk about tolerance, we talk about scholarship, because there's a vast library that he had, and we talk of course about technology, because the guns that Said Muhammad referred to and the cannons are outstanding. If you read history, then you realize this was something that came as a shock to the British colonial rule. Then the details will be in Akbar's account in the documentary. Probably we should suggest that Malaysian TV should take it up and get the translation done, with your permission. Not too much fees, okay? Because it's more historical and educational. So the artifacts that tell the Sultanate story most eloquently were once thought to be lost. Some of them are now in Malaysia, permanently, thanks to the Islamic Arts Museum. So if we want to talk about Tipu Sultan, it's here in the Islamic Arts Museum. I salute to Said Muhammad. When I was in London on an official visit, I had just 1 hour. I said, Muhammad, just 1 hour to the Islamic Art Division of the British Museum that he was entrusted to probably exhibit some of the most profound artifacts. And of course I had to spend 2.5 hours. You see the attraction and the passion. He insisted that I try and understand every single artifact there. And I said, Said, I'm on an official visit. I have a certain limited time. But thank you very much. I mean, that is... so I hope Malaysians take that opportunity, because it's not found in many places, in other places. At least to understand Indian history, Muslim history, history of scholarship and technology and tolerance in the figure of Tipu Sultan. Now, at this exhibition, I've been told that there are many references to Sultan's belief that it is, again, a very famous saying. In fact, I used that in some of my earlier campaigns. Better to live a day as a tiger than 100 years as a sheep. There was a Reformasi motto also. I'm glad it's the tiger that preoccupied Tipu Sultan. There are very few places left where this majestic cat still lives. We are promoting that, as you know, in the 13th Malaysia Plan. We made special reference to the Malayan tiger to save it. The entertainment mogul Akbar Khan's production, The Sword of Tipu Sultan, was a massive hit in the subcontinent, and he will be participating in some series of talks tomorrow. So I thank you again, Syed Muhammad and Syed Mukhtar and the friends here, and wish you well. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.